Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voice of MPE. My name is Dwayne Gefferie, and this is an MPE Talk series. In this episode, I'm talking to Dan England, who is the Director of Global Payments at Nu Skin. Hey, Dan, how are you?
I'm good, Dwayne. Good to see you again.
And good to see you as well. Hey, I want to talk a little bit about payments with you because the last time we talked, we had a great conversation, and I feel like there's so many little nuggets that you dropped on me while we were having this conversation. But I think maybe let's just start with an introduction, right? A lot of people might not know who you are. So tell me a little bit about you, how you got into the payments industry, and of course, how you became the Director of Global Payments at Nu Skin.
Yeah, I'm happy to take you through a little bit of my background. I'm the Director of Global Payments at Nu Skin. Nu Skin is a personal products / cosmetics e-commerce retailer. We are in 45 countries around the world, and it's my job to manage the payment strategy and operations in each one of those 45 countries. And I've been here in role about 5 years. And prior to that, I had a similar role at Ancestry. And prior to that, I worked at American Express for many years, kind of as an in-house consultant helping large e-commerce merchants to optimize their fraud and acceptance strategies. So that's a little bit about my background.
Nice. So at Nu Skin, right? Like I think for a lot of people, like I work in payment strategy as well. I deal with a lot of people who are either heads of payments. Like, what is your day-to-day role as a director of global payments involved at Nu Skin? What are you actually up to?
Yeah, well, candidly, a lot of my job is saying no to people, to turn away these crazy ideas of, hey, let's accept this new payment type that no one has ever heard of, out of this corner of the world that most people don't pay attention to. In other words, stay focused on the central strategy, which is execution of our optimization efforts and trying to consolidate our payments operations in 45 countries around one or two primary providers in kind of a champion challenger model, and then just optimize on that to try and improve the authorization rates and reduce fraud and reduce fraud exposure. So it's a lot of analyzing authorization rates. It's a lot of analyzing cost structures, looking at pricing and how much we pay for interchange. Yeah. Paying a lot of attention to the invoices that come in, and then just the little things. I call it the whirlwind. Settlement issues here and there, and this refund wasn't processed. Well, how can we fix that? And there's a lot of calls with vendors as well. So it's pretty busy. It makes my head spin just talking about it.
Yeah. No, it sounds to me like that it's really truly a global payments role because you're involved in all the different aspects of it. But especially like you said, you're in 45 different countries, and knowing a little bit about global payments, we deal a lot with cards, but also with APM. So what are some of those bigger challenges that you're currently facing when you're managing global payments across 45 different markets?
Yeah, okay. The first thing that comes to mind is just staying on top of all the issues and not letting issues and problems fall through the cracks. So just keeping track of everything. But then paying attention to, where we need to be, what payment types do we need to offer, researching what works in different countries. So what works in one country might not work as you cross the border into their neighboring country, not just, different corners of the world. So, it's trying to strike that careful balance between card acceptance on one side and getting the right APM mix on the other side. And that APM mix is just getting more complicated as we add, buy now, pay laters, installment providers, and then open banking is becoming more of a thing.
Yeah.
So it's just once I think I have that balance carefully struck and we're in good equilibrium, and something comes along to throw that all out of whack, and we're reacting. So it's a lot of work to stay on top of things.
Absolutely. So I think I fully agree with that, right? Payment is always moving. It has different things, right? It has so many different aspects, from authorization rates to pricing to compliance and dealing with all of those things. And of course, like I mentioned, like cards is always a big thing, but what are some of the key payment methods that you guys are prioritizing, and in what specific regions? And how do you decide what to offer?
Yeah, really good question. And there's no single answer. So let me talk principles with you. First, we have two primary business models. We have, the traditional e-commerce, the one-time payment. Most people know what that is. And then we have a subscription line of business, recurring line of business where customers get their product delivered to them on a monthly basis. So we have two lines of business. And so we're primarily looking at card acceptance, first of all. So the card brands. And of course, there's different card brands in different countries, but, we're primarily talking about Visa and MasterCard and American Express and JCB. And that's the primary payment method for subscriptions. Now, there are exceptions in different countries, but so we try to really nail the credit card or the payment card acceptance performance. We're looking at approval rates and always looking at how we can increase those through different tools, like tokens, like account updater, dunning and retry and recycling strategies. So spend a lot of time looking at payment card acceptance and the operations there. And then adding to that, the alternative payments. And it is a challenge to figure out what works in what country, and, what research and what data points, what sounding boards do we pay attention to when trying to do that. So it's a combination of listening to our customers, listening to our employees, our colleagues on the ground in each market, and doing market research and looking at industry sources, periodicals. Dwayne, you've been a wonderful resource for me to, bounce ideas off of and give me some ideas on what works and what doesn't. So, just taking it all in, in payments, one of the cool things about payments that I really like is there's no central authority. There's no central mechanism. It's really kind of an anarchy out there. It's kind of, in America, we call it the wild, wild west, where, within reason, anything goes. You find a solution, you make it work. And that's at its core, that's what keeps me interested in payments. And that's what continues to draw me.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think we've reached a stage now in payments where we've gotten away from the big mergers and everything that put it together, and sort of like try to keep everybody on a sort of straight path or not do anything crazy. And what I'm seeing is just this unbundling of all of these payments, right? It's not just all the things that you mentioned, from tokenization to orchestration to alternative payment methods. And it used to be that we would look at payment service providers or acquirers to guide us to that. But nowadays, I see companies like this, similar to yours, if you have enough volume, take on all of that, their responsibility themselves, and say, hey, we got to set up our own strategy. We got to figure out which tools work well, which payment methods do well, and figure out how we can utilize them in the best sense. So I think that's a very interesting perspective. But One of the things that I really like about New Skin is the fact that you guys are also just pushing things when it comes to innovating with the products that you're developing, right? So one of the things that I saw, for instance, was you have some of the products that are IoT. And I think IoT and payments still a little bit far away, but you have such a focus on innovation with IoT and personalized experience. So how are you currently seeing payments technology evolving to start enhancing some of those customer experiences, especially in like the beauty and wellness industry?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I could talk all day about that. So I hope I don't ramble here, but
Oh, no.
in terms of how payments work, those products you're seeing with IoT, those typically have a higher price point, and so the
Yeah.
first thing, but with that higher price point, those devices drive further sales. So, for example, I'm thinking of one device in particular, which is a facial scrubbing device. It analyzes your skin tone and elasticity, and the oily makeup of your skin, and it diagnoses treatments and gives recommendations on how you should take care of your personalized skincare routine. Um, and then it drives, so you can see that it drives further sales. So
Yeah.
there's specific soaps and lotions and ointments that you could buy, and specific scrubbers that you can buy. So that's part of the recurring strategy, the subscription strategy. So you buy this device, and every month you'll need these additional products to continue using that. So we're trying to really nail down the performance of the subscription payments so that customers can continue using these devices. But then backing up just a touch, in order to buy that product in the first place, again, it's a little higher price point. So we've been looking at adding buy now, pay later and installment solutions. And those have really helped to drive those sales, and especially working with those vendors and doing cross promotional campaigns, marketing campaigns with one or two of those providers, where they advertise our products on their platforms and in their channels, and that can help to really drive sales. So yeah, a lot of it is partnering with our payments providers, and that's something that I'm seeing more of. It's becoming more and more common. Whereas, when I started in the industry, the payment providers were, very in the background, no exposure. We didn't want people to know who we're using to process their payments. But now it's much more of an open, transparent partnership that we're trying to leverage and say, hey, look, we accept this payment type. And that adds to our credibility.
Absolutely. And I especially like the way that some of those products that you just mentioned are then connected to the app, right? And because IoT on itself, I think there's going to be a lot of applications as far as having like refrigerators who are going to get much more intelligent and then order goods for you. But I think you guys are doing such an innovative job on taking a device that's then connected to an app and that can actually then have a subscription or control everything that's in there. And I think, we're not seeing that in across the beauty industry or across retail or across payments. And I really like how you're pushing the envelope on that. So maybe a question on that. As you guys are developing new innovative products or you're working on the app, how do you then go about selecting the type of companies that you work with? Are you looking for solutions that are already out there, or are you much more of a we're developing new things and we just need to make this work, so we have to go out there and actually get these guys to innovate and stay up to date with what we're doing?
Yeah, that's again, that's a complicated answer to a very good question. I would like to think that we're innovative and we're pushing our partners. But I would say, going back to one of my principles, is we're trying to actually also, despite everything I've said, we're trying to simplify things. And so the first thing I look at when selecting vendors is, what's their implementation strategy or their connection? Do they connect to some of my existing infrastructure, meaning a gateway or a hosted payment page that I've already implemented? And that, if the answer to that is yes, then we're already well down the road to a good partnership. Because then, my technology colleagues are relatively satisfied. Yeah, we can do that. And my finance colleagues on the back end, they reconcile the transactions and recognize the revenue. They're likely already working with the connection and the reporting, and so they're happy too. So it makes it so much easier to bring on a payments vendor that already is connected to my platform. So those partnerships are where I look first. And if the answer is no, then it has to be a very compelling business case. The customer base is large and broad, and not just in one country, but regional. They're a regional player, and I can name some examples, but that's really the first thing I look at is, are they connected to a platform that I already use?
Okay, very good. So I think also, like, coming back on the fact that you're in all of those different markets, you're truly operating on a global scale. What always comes to mind for me is currency conversion, right? Cross-border payments. So whenever you're managing these cross-border payments, and you must definitely have specific markets that are much more volatile than other markets. You deal with different exchange rates that might not always be settled in a preferred currency. How do you go about managing all of that financial risk that you have in it? Do you leave a lot of it up to the providers that you work with, or do you actually take an active role into managing that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's kind of a boring answer, actually, Dwayne, because we've taken the decision that our strategy is local currency. So I call it tri-local. We auth, settle, and fund in local currency. Okay. And I think 40 of the 45 markets that we are in.
Does that mean you have a local entity also in every
Yes.
single one of those countries? Okay.
We have local entities in every country we're in. So there are exceptions, obviously, Iceland, because it's such a small country.
Yeah.
And there are, some exceptions in some obscure countries that are just really difficult to find, the tri-local capability that I'm talking about. But we've taken that decision, and it's an enormous investment in resources, but because of our business model, we are often required to register with the country's government. And so we're trying to comply with local laws. But speaking to your larger question, we still deal with the FX, but we deal with it on our own terms. So we can kind of play the arbitrage game internally within our own Treasury department. We can decide when to repatriate funds. Of course, that's become a lot more complicated as the dollar strengthens. So the dollar is very strong right now. And as an American, that's nice. But, as a businessman doing business in other countries, that's kind of tough. So we have to, we have to play the arbitrage game, but we do it ourselves. We don't have to pay, payments providers a surcharge to do the FX for us. We do it on our own terms.
No, very good. So I think that's also a strategy that I continue to see, is that travel always did that, right? Especially when you look at like a Booking.com or an Expedia, they would set up all of these different entities across the world because they were processing in local currencies, had to do payouts in local currencies. So you see it. Exactly. But now you also see it with global retailers who are like, hey, we have a main hub, we're importing all of those goods to the specific countries, and then we're selling them over there. And it's a very interesting dynamic to see. But I think one of the things that we had a conversation about as well was regarding sort of like the business model that Nu Skin has. And I think for a lot of companies who are looking for global distribution, who are looking for global marketing, who are trying to stay ahead of all of the trends and influencer marketing and all of those other things that are out there, you guys have developed a pretty unique platform or a way of distributing and promoting your goods. Can you tell a little bit about that, and especially how payments connects into that?
Yeah, we do have a very unique platform. So we're a multi-level marketing company. So we depend on our distributors to do a lot of the marketing for us, and sell products on their own. However, the actual purchase, so the customers are not purchasing directly from distributors. In most cases, the end customer is coming to a newskin.com property and ordering directly from Newskin while entering their distributor's information, so we can attribute the sale appropriately. So in that sense, we are a very traditional e-commerce merchant. But yeah, we're depending on our distributors to do their work and refer clients correctly. Another avenue, another business channel that is exploding is the influencer side of things. Mm-hmm. And, we all know what an influencer is, but, it's social networking. And these influencers, we're in the skincare cosmetics game. They do the get ready with me routine, or they show their makeup or skincare routine, and they put that on social media with little buttons or links to buy the products that they're demonstrating. And that can, in some cases, redirect to New Skin. And so that's actually been a lot of fun. It's very challenging to, work in this new social media environment and kind of put our business model forward in a fresh environment and make payments part of that. It's been very challenging, very fulfilling.
Yeah. And I can imagine that working with PSPs or acquirers, you have to educate them on that aspect as well, is that things are moving at such a rapid pace. And then you have all of a sudden you have all of these sub merchants, or even though they're affiliates or influencers, they then also need to get a piece of that. So you become a marketplace at the same time, and all of a sudden yes, you're dealing with funds that belong to you, but at the same time also need to be paid out. So do you want to get them settled, or do you want to settle out directly? So definitely very interesting. Looking forward, I want to sort of like also get some of your thoughts about what you're seeing. We discussed a lot of things like IoT, talk about influencer type of marketing strategies and how you have to deal with that. But what are some of the trends that you're seeing that are currently shaping global payments? And maybe make it very specific about beauty and wellness, right? Like, what are some of those major trends that we might not have discussed that you're seeing as well?
Yeah. A few things come to mind. The first is something I've already mentioned, which is the buy now, pay later. We initially implemented buy now, pay later solutions with the idea that it will drive sales of our higher ticket items. And it has, but an unintended happy side effect is that customers are also using buy now, pay later and installments to buy kind of the lower ticket items as well, which is surprising. So we're seeing customers across the board use buy now, pay later in a much more broad, general manner rather than just high ticket items. And so it becomes crucial to negotiate the prices of those buy now, pay later solutions so that it makes sense for us to allow customers to buy on those terms. So we're paying very careful attention to the costs. Another idea that is coming is open banking, especially in Europe, where that's really opened things up and that's taking off. I'm still trying to get my arms around how that all works and what that looks like. I like the idea of, A to A payments, where especially a push payment where I don't really have the risk that is normally associated with bank debits and drafts. And and the cost of those transactions is typically quite a bit lower than a payment card transaction. But Dwayne, there's always, that trade-off, of those transactions typically have a lower ticket. So I'm hoping that as we implement more and more of these A2A transactions in open banking environments, that we'll see that kind of democratization effect that we're seeing with buy now, pay later, that all across the board, all such purchases, high ticket, low ticket values are used in to make those kind of purchases.
Absolutely. Well, I think I always enjoy having a conversation with you about payments because I just know that, one, you're in the midst of it all, right? You're in an interesting industry to me that I think so many new things are happening, so many new technologies are coming along, but also new distribution models, as well as indeed what you mentioned, like everything from buy now, pay later to open banking and how you're utilizing that. And I think you're doing an amazing job with New Skin and just bringing them forward and going across the world. But maybe like the last thing, my last question then, right? What is a market, or what are markets that you're currently looking at that you're currently not in, but you find extremely fascinating and are looking for to solve that problem next, right? To get your company to that next level. What are some of those markets that you're looking at?
Well, we're in 45 countries, so there's not many countries left on the map to look at, but it's been announced, it's public. We are opening India next year, so that's a publicly known announcement, and United Arab Emirates as well. So those two countries are attracting my attention a lot, trying to figure out what kind of payments we're going to offer. Those are very complex, challenging markets. But again, in payments, Dwayne, I don't need to tell you, there's always something new. There's always something interesting to learn. So yeah, those markets are top of mind for me right now. And just existing markets with changing environments, Argentina is a great example. Something's always changing there. Japan is another example where they've recently mandated 3DS usage. So we're figuring that out. So there's always something new. It's not just geographic expansion. It's the changing payments environment in each one of these countries.
Dan, I really appreciate you taking the time for this conversation. Hopefully we'll meet each other soon somewhere else so we can have another conversation about payments. And for the people watching, this was the Voice of MPE, an MPE Talk series with Dwayne Gefferie. And check out our next episode.
Thanks, Dwayne. My pleasure.
Thank you.